Welcome to a special episode of Project 250. This one should be fun. We're trying something different in this video, counting down the 10 best Revolutionary War movies. Popular culture isn't something we normally deal with on this channel, and for good reason. After all, this is a channel dedicated to Revolutionary War history, and movies, as we all know, did not exist at the time. So why are we devoting valuable channel time to a discussion of movies? My answer is simple. Why not? We don't have to be serious all the time. Besides, never forget the golden rule of YouTube. It's my channel, and I can do what I want. One final note of introduction. This video represents part 1 of a 2-part episode, so be sure to tune in next week for part 2. Before we get started, I'd like to provide some context regarding the methodology used to create this list. First, it should be noted that this list of Revolutionary War movies isn't limited to movies alone. It also includes TV shows, both regular series and miniseries, but excludes documentaries. Second, I've only included titles that I've personally seen. I don't think it's fair to comment on works that I haven't actually watched. One final note regarding the criteria used for ranking these movies. The rankings are based on 2 main criteria, the first being cinematic merit, in other words, whether or not it's a good movie, based on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb scores, and my own personal opinion. The second criteria being historical accuracy, with the 2 criteria weighted about 70% merit and 30% accuracy, since all of these movies fall short of the mark of historical accuracy in varying degrees. Indeed, when it comes to historical accuracy in the entertainment industry, it's important to always temper one's expectations. The truth is, no movie or TV show or book for that matter is 100% historically accurate. After all, filmmakers are not professional historians, and even professional historians sometimes get it wrong. Furthermore, filmmakers only have 2 or maybe 3 hours to tell a story, so compromises have to be made. The real question is not whether a movie or TV show deviates from the historical record. They all do. But to what extent and for what reason? Is it to facilitate the story, or is there another agenda at work? To summarize, I don't expect movies to be completely accurate, but filmmakers should at least make an honest effort to get it right. So let's get into it, shall we? As the late Casey Kasem used to say, and now, on with the countdown. But first, here are a couple of honorable mentions. First, we have The Spy, released in June 1914, directed by Otis Turner and written by James Dayton, based on a James Fenimore Cooper novel. The film starred Herbert Rawlinson, Edna Maison, Ella Hall, and a bunch of other people you've never heard of. I've included this movie for just one reason. As far as I can determine, it was the first movie made about the American Revolution. Unfortunately, it's a lost film, so we can't actually watch it. Still, I thought it ought to be mentioned. Next we have The Adams Chronicles, a miniseries that aired on PBS in 1976 as part of the bicentennial commemoration. It starred George Grizzard and Catherine Walker as John and Abigail Adams. With executive producer Jack Venza, the series was directed by Paul Bogart, James Selin-Jones, Bill Glenn, Fred Coe, Barry Davis, and Anthony Page. It was written by Sam Hall, Tad Mosel, and several others. It has an IMDb score of 8.2 out of 10. That's fairly impressive, but I've never seen it, and so can't comment on it. Number 10. Daniel Boone. I struggled quite a bit with this selection. It's admittedly an iffy choice in terms of its connection to the American Revolution. It barely fits within the time frame, but it doesn't really deal with the Revolution in any meaningful way. Nevertheless, it's rated 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, so I've decided to include it, but have placed it at number 10 to illustrate just how mediocre Revolutionary War films have been over the years. Daniel Boone. was a television series that ran from 1964 to 1970 on NBC and starred Fess Parker as Daniel Boone. The choice of Parker is interesting. First, it's coming off his previous success playing Davy Crockett in the Walt Disney series, a role that made him a household name. So they were looking to extend that wave of popularity, but since Davy Crockett was killed at the Alamo, there wasn't anything more to say about him. So they came up with Daniel Boone, and who better to play the part than Parker, who had already made a name for himself playing a frontiersman. Because Parker was so closely associated with Crockett and the coonskin cap, the producers made him wear a coonskin cap on the show, even though Daniel Boone hated coonskins and would never wear one. I don't think Crockett liked them all that much either, but that was the image associated with him. So for marketing reasons, Parker had to wear a coonskin cap. The series also featured Patricia Blair as Boone's wife and Veronica Cartwright and Darby Hinton as his children. Also in the cast was Ed Ames, youngest of the musical Ames brothers, who played Mingo, a local Indian. This was another interesting casting choice considering Ed Ames was not Native American but Jewish, a fact that pretty much sums up 1960s television. Looking at the series as a whole and its historical validity, forget it, there is none. Sure, Daniel Boone was a real guy who founded Boonesboro and had a wife and kids and all the rest, but that's about it. As for its dramatic merit, that's more difficult to assess. Suffice it to say that it's a fairly typical 1960s drama, and very much a product of its time. The plots, characters, and situations are straight out of the 1960s, so if you're a fan of 1960s drama, you'll probably like it. If not, you might want to look for something else. It's fine, but it's nothing special. That's pretty much all there is to say about this show. You probably won't lose too many brain cells watching it, but don't expect to learn anything either. Perhaps the best thing I can say is that at least Phil Collins didn't spend a small fortune buying up fake Daniel Boone relics like he did with Davy Crockett. Final grade, C-. Number 9. April Morning. Next up on our countdown is 1988's April Morning. Adapted from the novel by Howard Fast, who co-wrote the screenplay with James Lee Barrett. This made-for-television film was directed by Delbert Mann and was a Hallmark Hall of Fame presentation. One online reviewer described this film as a gem of a movie, a true classic. That seems like a slight exaggeration. It's pretty good, but not a great movie. It's certainly a step up from Daniel Boone, both as history and as drama, but it pales in comparison to some other films on this list. The film's main selling point is its cast, led by Academy Award winner Tommy Lee Jones as Moses Cooper. One of the most acclaimed actors of his time, Jones brings a sense of gravitas to the film that sets it apart from typical made-for-television fare. The cast also includes Susan Blakely as his wife Sarah and Chad Lowe as their son, Adam, who is the film's main focus. Rounding out the cast are Robert Urich as Joseph Simmons, along with Meredith Salinger and Rip Torn as Whig agitator Solomon Chandler. As for the film itself, again, it's pretty good, but not great. The presence of Jones and Torn elevates a cast composed mainly of television actors. Chad Lowe as Adam Cooper effectively conveys a young man's eagerness to prove himself, along with his shock and confusion at the events he witnesses. Lowe's performance also offers ample evidence that whiny teenagers are not a recent development. As to its historical accuracy, again, it's okay. The film deviates from the novel in several respects. For example, in the book, Adam has a younger brother who is absent from the film, but mostly gets the essential elements of the story right, at least in terms of chronology. It should be noted, however, that most of the major characters are fictitious. It also does a good job of portraying 18th century family values, community life in Lexington, and the essential role that religion played in the Revolution, something that is often overlooked in modern accounts. My main criticism of the film concerns Meredith Salinger, who plays Chad Lowe's love interest. The problem with Ms. Salinger is that she looks too much like Meredith Salinger. In other words, she doesn't look like an 18th century teenage girl. She looks like a 20th century movie star. In fairness, all of the actors look too modern, which is a polite way of saying they look too good. This is especially noticeable in terms of dental work. Nearly everyone in the 18th century had bad teeth. Indeed, George Washington's dental issues have been well documented. But you'd never know it from watching this movie, as nearly everyone seems to have a full set of pearly whites. To sum up, a good movie, but not a great one. Final grade, C. Number 8. The Crossing. Another made-for-TV movie. This one aired in 2000 on A&E, back before that network was completely taken over by reality television. It was directed by Robert Harmon, written by Howard Fast, based on his novel, and produced by Bob Christensen and Rick Rosenberg. The film stars Emmy winner Jeff Daniels, Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain in the film Gettysburg, as General George Washington, with Roger Rees as Brigadier General Hugh Mercer and Sebastian Roche as Colonel John Glover. As the title suggests, the movie is a recounting of Washington's Christmas, 1776, crossing of the Delaware River and the ensuing Battle of Trenton. As one might expect, the main focus of the film is Jeff Daniels' portrayal of General Washington, and it's on Daniels' shoulders that most of the narrative burden rests. In that regard, one must say that Daniels does an admirable job in the title role, giving Washington just the right balance of dignity and humanity, showcasing both the leadership qualities that made Washington a legend, as well as his notorious temper. In assessing the merits of Daniels' portrayal of Washington, the question naturally arises if anyone else could have done a better job. This is not a rhetorical question. Washington, much like Abraham Lincoln, has become such a revered figure in American culture that it almost seems that no actor can measure up to his legend. We finally got a definitive Lincoln portrayal, thanks to Daniel Day-Lewis, but I think we're still waiting for the definitive Washington. Having said that, Daniels is a very capable actor, and his Washington is more than passable, if not quite definitive. Frankly, I don't see Daniel Day-Lewis ever taking on the role. Regarding the film's historical accuracy, much like April Morning, it gets the basic story right, but with a few noteworthy errors. It incorrectly depicts General Horatio Gates being removed from the American camp at gunpoint. Likewise, it also incorrectly shows Alexander Hamilton as a member of Washington's staff. In fact, Hamilton was an artillery officer at the time of the crossing and did not join Washington's staff until March 1777. Perhaps most egregiously, it is stated in the final credits that no American troops were killed or wounded, when in fact 2 soldiers froze to death and 5 were wounded, including James Monroe. My favorite line from the movie, George Washington to Henry Knox. Move that fat-ass Henry. Final grade, C. Number 7. Drums Along the Mohawk. This one was a bit of a challenge for me. I have seen Drums Along the Mohawk, but not for many years, and frankly, I don't remember much about it. Normally, I'd prefer to rewatch a movie I haven't seen in a while to refresh my memory. Unfortunately, I was unable to track down a copy of Drums Along the Mohawk. I couldn't even find a reaction video, so I'm forced to rely on secondary sources, including Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and, God help me, Wikipedia for ratings and production information. So, to repeat, I have seen this movie, but I don't remember much about it. Anyway, here we go. Released in 1939, Drums Along the Mohawk was produced by Darrell F. Zanuck and written by Sonia Levine, Lamar Trotty, and Walter D. Edmond, and based on Edmond's novel. The film was directed by the legendary John Ford. Fun fact, this was Ford's first Technicolor film. The film stars Academy Award winners Claudette Colbert and Henry Fonda, with John Carradine and Ward Bond in supporting roles. Drums Along the Mohawk is loosely based on the events preceding the 1777 Battle of Oriskany, New York, but it deviates from the historical record in most respects, so much so that it's hardly worth discussing its historical accuracy. There is another aspect of the film that ought to be mentioned. More than any other film on this list, Drums Along the Mohawk is extremely polarizing. This is hardly surprising given that the film was released in 1939 and is very much a product of its time. This sentiment is strongly reflected in audience comments. As one audience member on Rotten Tomatoes phrased it, in a 2.5-star review, "I understand this was made in 1939, but it is so sexist and racist that it was hard to watch." Another assessed it as maybe the best movie about the American Revolution, at least the Frontier War, ever made, a claim that strikes this commentator as highly questionable. Despite these criticisms, the film was a commercial success and was even nominated for an Academy Award. After all, it's a John Ford film, so it can't be all bad. Final grade, C. This concludes part 1 of our countdown of the 10 best Revolutionary War movies. Make sure to tune in for part 2 next week. In the meantime, feel free to go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree with the films on the list so far? What movies or TV shows would you include in your list of the 10 best or worst for that matter? Let us know in the comments below. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you think of it, hit the notification bell as well. It all helps out the channel, especially now that we're back to a once-weekly format. Thanks for watching.